Right. And something else I think we should talk a little bit about is sort of the role of the press in politics and how, I don't know, you would get the sense that, back when Hunter S. Thompson's writing Fear and Loathing on the Campaign Trail, that reporters were somehow different from, say, sort of the very bland and, I guess sort of bland type that, seemed to be popping up in your book and even in your current reports. Do you think that's the 24-hour news cycle or what? I mean, what sort of changed the nature of campaign reporting?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why the reporters now are different than they were then. I mean, my father's a reporter. I grew up around reporters my whole life, and when I was a kid, and I guess that was around the same time that Hunter Thompson was writing. The people who were reporters tended to be these sort of iconoclastic, bitter losers, who had a chip on their shoulder and saw themselves as being antagonists to power, as somebody that you had to get past in order to if you had a bill of goods that you wanted to sell to the public, they were going to hold you to a high standard. They were going to make sure that your platform passed muster and all of that, and they saw themselves as sort of gatekeepers and somebody that was going to challenge authority. And now what you have, the journalism profession has turned into, just sort of another corporate career path for people. And the people who you see covering candidates on the campaign trail tend to be, I hate to use this term, but they tend to be a lot more careerist. I think you often see the situation where they're very attracted to their proximity to power that the job offers. On the campaign trail, there's sort of a Stockholm syndrome situation that develops by, where these reporters they're on the planes with the candidates constantly, and they're constantly hanging around with the candidate staffers, and everybody becomes friends, and they all hang out with each other, and as a result, the whole process of covering the campaigns becomes far too collegial, and the adversarial aspect that it's supposed to have really disappears. And I think that's why there's so much credulous and unquestioning campaign reporting.
Right. And speaking of that, describe Wimblehack, which was a great series of articles. Where'd you guys get the idea to put on a tournament for the worst campaign reporter?
Well, this is the thing we did in Russia. Originally, I did that in Russia with the Excel. We had this thing every year where we would do like this tournament, like a March Madness style tournament with to determine who was the worst reporter in Moscow, and we would basically bracket off the reporters into pairs, and then whoever wrote the worst article that week would advance. And of course, it was completely subjective and and unfair and mean and all that stuff. But and every year we would give a prize to the worst reporter, and we had all kinds of wrinkles in Russia. Like for instance, we would admit openly that if you wanted to bribe us to get out of the tournament, you could, and there were actually some reporters who actually went along with that. We had a guy who in Russia who was a British reporter for a British magazine who we asked we made him buy us an expensive lunch and pose for a photo carrying the American flag, and that was the cost of him getting out of the tournament, and he did it, and other guys paid us money to get out and that sort of stuff. There was one year actually where the winner of the tournament was his prize was getting a pie made out of horse sperm thrown in his face. So it was kind of a nasty thing, and what I ended up doing here in the States, I sort of transplanted that and did the same thing with campaign reporters in '04. I didn't do any scary prize this time around, but that was sort of the general idea. So that definitely made me a little bit unpopular on the campaign trail. I think it's one of the reasons why I don't have a whole lot of friends now when I go out. So.
Gotcha. And I was really rooting for Howard Feynman, so I got to ask if you're gearing up for an '08 version of the Wimblehack.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Yeah, I had a little issue with Howard Feynman actually last week that I don't want to get into, but yeah, he's it's funny now when I go out in the campaign trail and I talk to people who are at events and that sort of thing. I find that there's more anger directed towards the press, the political press, than there is towards the candidates. I think people are just so tired. They're tired of a lot of things. They're tired of the fact that the media makes such a big deal out of appearances and out of totally bogus and irrelevant issues, and that they're constantly talking about who looked better in the debates and who looked more nervous. I mean, I think people are actually aching for more substance than the press thinks that they want, and there's a backlash against that, and you can see that with all the attention that the blogs are getting, and people are really turning increasingly towards other sources of information because they're just tired of reading what to them just seems like press releases for the candidates in these in the mainstream media. So I think that's a consequence of all this.
Right, yeah, sort of the horse race mentality, right?
Yeah, people are really tired of that. I mean, I think and the excuse that the reporters give when you ask them about that is that hey, people aren't interested. They don't want to read a policy paper on on pollution in Newsweek magazine. They're into controversy, they're into scandal, and maybe that's true, but I think increasingly people they resent being lumped into the stereotype as being these sort of dumb sheep who are only interested in the horse race and the soap opera aspect of campaigning. I think people want to see more in-depth stuff.
We'll be back with more of our interview with Matt Taibbi after this break. And I think really 2004 seems like just yesterday, but can you believe that 2008's already here in 2007?
Yeah, it's amazing how the campaigns now start like 18 or 20 months before the election now. So I mean it's almost like a never-ending process at this point. And the funny thing is, like, if you went and polled the entire country like 20 months before the election and asked them, are you going to vote for the Democrat or the Republican, almost everybody has already made up their minds, like far before the election.
Right.
And so, the idea that we need all of this time and all this energy and this constant crisscrossing of the country for these candidates to get up and repeat their completely banal and substanceless speeches over and over and over again, that we need this for 500 days or whatever in order for people to make up their minds or be informed about the election. It's preposterous. I mean, in other countries, in Japan, the election cycle only lasts 6 weeks or something like that. It just doesn't take that long, and I think what you get out of that is that this whole campaign process serves another purpose. It's entertainment for the networks. It's a substitute for real political coverage, because once the campaign season starts, you don't see investigative journalism about really anything else, any other political issues, and it's a distraction from real issues, it seems to me.
Right, and I noticed that this season, it seems, you're covering mostly Republicans. I saw you had a piece about Giuliani and about Thompson and some stuff
right.
about...
I got Romney next week, yeah.
All right, well, how come you've switched over to cover the Republicans this time around?
Well, I work for Rolling Stone magazine, which is, has a particular political point of view, and I think we made a decision that we wanted to go after certain candidates first, and also I think one of the things you have to do with the campaign is you have to make sure that you pick the guys who are going to lose to talk about first, because they're not going to be around to kick around for very long. So we wanted to, we thought that there were some people who would be interesting and funny to write about who may not be here for very long, and so that's probably why I'm doing all the Republicans now, getting that out of the way before they're all gone.